Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming in so early. We really appreciate having you. I'm Bart Bettiga. I'm the Executive Director of the National Tile Contractors Association. We're one of the 5 association managing partners of Coverings. I'm happy to be the moderator of this session and happy to have our 3 panelists who are all highly respected in the tile industry and also in understanding market conditions and economic forecasting. So with that, I'm going to just kind of, rather than read long bios to you and we can get in, I'm going to actually just ask each of them to introduce themselves real quickly to you, and then we're going to get right into the gist of this content of this program. So next to me is Joe Lundgren. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Joe.
Will do. My name is Joe Lundgren. Joseph Lundgren Consulting is my company. I've been at it since I left Dow Tile after a 27-year career, and went out and had the idea of being a consultant until I found a real job. I'm still looking for that if anyone's looking, so I'll get my resume polished up. But no, it's been 11 years, been a great 11 years in being able to stay in the industry. I also have a side business, a different business with my wife, but just love the ceramic tile business and love being continue to grow and learn from guys like this. So
that's great. Awesome. Sean Boyle, Senior Vice President of Laticrete. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Laticrete.
Sure. So I'm in my coming up on my 23rd year at Laticrete, and my responsibilities are to oversee all the marketing functions, so product development, marketing communications, marketing information systems. But one of the cornerstones of my job is to help with the strategic planning for the company, and one of the core components of that is obviously understanding what's happening within the industry, tile and stone, the macroeconomic, because that really impacts our business. So to help guide where we may go with the product portfolio, where we may decide to go in terms of company investments and what channels or segments. So really looking at the data as much as possible, talking to these fine gentlemen and others to help, because there's no one single answer, so you try to look for consensus, and so that's my that's one of the big roles that I play at the company. So glad to be here. Thank you for getting up and early to come and listen to us. Hopefully we can give you some valuable information.
Thank you, Sean. And Santo, Torcivia, right? I'm Italian, so I'm trying to get this right. Is that right? Torcivia?
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about what you do, Santo. I always enjoy your reports.
Well, thank you. I'm president of Market Insights, LLC. It's a 27-year-old consultancy. Prior to that, I worked for Mannington Mills in New Jersey as a VP for business analysis and planning. And I'm also contributing editor at For Focus magazine. And we're working right now on our annual report issue, and this is our big time in the year, and hopefully it'll be out shortly, and you'll get to see what's going on in the industry from For Focus's point of view.
One of the things when we talked about putting this session together that I really wanted to emphasize is I didn't want, we've done over the years, brought in economic speakers, futurists, things of that nature, and I really wanted to bring some people in that were specifically focused on the flooring industry and the tile industry, because I was hoping that our conversation would get deeper into the tile market and what that looks like. So I think that's kind of our overall goal, is to talk about the economy, obviously, and both the commercial and residential market, and then head into a discussion on the flooring overview. So what we're going to do is open with Joe. I'm going to pass over the baton, and he's going to start, and then we're going to work our way down. Our goal then is, after we get through these 3 sessions, is to really open it up and hopefully have some dialogue with all of you if you have questions related to what we've got to report on.
all right. I'm still wondering what a futurist is. I'll take that and put that on my business card if it means I get paid more. The way we're going to do this is we broke it down into 3 segments. So I'm going to start out, as you can see, on the macro, high-level discussion, and then Sean's going to take it into the U.S. residential, more detailed commercial information specific to residential and commercial. And then Santo's going to do the flooring overview. He has a good experience in multiple floor coverings. And then the good thing is if you don't agree with him, Sean and I throw him under the bus, and we say we had nothing to do with his slides. So with that, we'll just go ahead and hit the economic ones. Obviously, GDP, we have the estimated Q1 coming out at a 1 to 2 points, right in that range. But obviously, we see the spike back there with the pandemic. We're all familiar with that. Everybody hates hearing the P word, but the P word's still impacting us on a lot of different aspects of business out there in the marketplace. So the good news is we've got a good trend going here. This one, and for those of you that don't know and don't receive my report, you can go on my website, sign up. It's free, unlike Santos, mine is free. Just a little plug there. You can go out and sign up for that, but his is much more detailed than mine. Just so, little plug for you, Santo. This one I take a look at because specifically I take a look at GDPs in countries that import a lot. Obviously, we're 30% domestic production, 70% is imported. So it's important to see what's going on in these countries. A lot of countries look at us as the land of Oz. We're the biggest importer. We're going to run to the United States and everything's going to be great. Yes, 70% of what we consume here in the United States is imported. So it's important to see what other economies are doing because that's when they get really aggressive. If they're not selling their capacity domestically, you want to be looking at who's really looking to get a good deal into the United States. So that's part of my report that I put out. Inflation. Are we sick of the I word or what? Okay. Now, the I word, though, took a little a bump up. You look back in March of 2022, and obviously we had a problem. Again, caused by the P word, I'll just say, the pandemic. But I have to say the Fed did a great job bringing that down. Now we can all argue whether we need to lower rates with where inflation's coming in. They've done a great job thus far, I have to say, to bring inflation down. Didn't like this little bump up that we saw in March. Okay, so we all anticipated next time there'd be some rate drops. Probably not going to happen. Maybe the next one it would happen. And you'll hear the consensus through the group, and a lot of you know that. Listen, interest rates is really what affects consumer sentiment. Consumer sentiment is really what affects people going out and spending money. And we'll get more into detail on that. And here's consumer sentiment. You can see in April it took a drop down. And people are really just concerned when they listen to the news, the lovely news, casts this black shadow out there. The United States is a great market. We're doing well with everything that's going on, except the sentiment is what drives a lot of people's decision on whether they're going to remodel or not. Sean's going to talk a little bit more about the commercial market and the ABI specifically, but I'm going to steal a little bit of his thunder. When you look at that ABI number, which is the Architectural Billings Index, and that really drives the commercial market. That's when we know the architects are busy. Well, back about a year ago, we saw those numbers pretty high. Everybody was pretty giddy, thinking, hey, we've got a big commercial thing coming. One of the things you got to consider when you look at that slide is that when you think about the interest rates being where they were, a lot of these developers have developed these projects at lower interest rates. So they can't do them yet. They have to wait till rates drop. But they don't want to wait to get their plans done. So they were proactive, did a lot of architectural work, and we didn't see that work come because it's on the shelf right now. It's what we call pent-up demand. I know you guys don't like that word, but there's a lot of pent-up demand out there, both residentially and commercial, that's going to come. And this is another thing to look at. ABI can be wonderful. A lot of work, commercial work. I like to come back and look at how much money is being lent in the marketplace. A lot of times we don't go back and look, and that's overall what's the money supply being able to go out and lend to the commercial team. So that's a key thing that I like to watch, and you can see sometimes the ABI goes up, and we don't see a lot of commercial work 12 to 18 months later, and you come back and you look, and that's because there's not a lot of money out there to go out and loan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Joe. All right, so taking from that high-level macro, now we start to drill down one more level down to see what might be happening in a specific vertical. So there's a lot in the slide, but really I'm going to start with the lower left quadrant, as Joe was mentioning, the interest rates, right? So whatever the federal fund, whatever the Fed does, the Federal Reserve and the money that they, the interest rates that they charge banks is directly impacting all of us in your car loan, your home mortgage, right? So when you look at the lower left box, those were some pretty good days right there when mortgage rates were in the 4, 3, right? Those were really good rates that were basically driving and fueling a lot of first-time home buyers and new home construction. So when you look at that lower left box, these increased rates of 6%, they're directly attributable. Look at the box above it, right? The sale of existing homes. As the mortgage rates have gone up, the sale of existing homes has dropped down, right? It's obviously a direct correlation. And so when you look at like 2020, 2021, the US usually is 5 million existing homes a year, right? And what do most people do before they sell a home, or what they try to do is what? They remodel the kitchen or bathroom to help increase the value of the house. And then also, what do people do when they buy an existing home? They maybe want to make it their own, they remodel it, right? So it's a lot of tile and stone, at least, going to kitchen and bathroom. So when you see a drop just last year, 23, almost just about 20% down the year before, and even higher, that is impacting all of us. We're feeling that. So it's really being driven by those high mortgage rates. Now, the good news is that we hope, as of right now, we hope, you saw some of the numbers from Joe earlier, we're hoping that the trough will be hit here in Q2, and we're hoping that maybe in the back half of this year, things will materialize. Every month that goes by, I'm honestly getting a little bit more pessimistic that 5% will happen, but I'm going to try to stay optimistic, but that's one thing that is hurting for sure the residential market, and residential is the big driver of tile and stone, big driver. You look at the lower right quadrant, so if you're a first-time home buyer, you're getting a double whammy. Not only are you getting a high mortgage rate, but the prices, the median prices of an existing home, or even new homes, is up considerably, right? Now it's come down the last couple of years, that's a good sign, but the mortgage rates are still high. And then we look at housing starts. Right now, when you look at single family, it's projected as of right now, we're gonna hope the numbers come out, but we're hoping that the single family housing starts will increase this year over last year, but multifamily's taking a hit this year, okay? So when you look at one of the key drivers that we do for tile and stone consumption, it's the residential marketplace. I want to say it's close to 65% of tile consumption is residential. So what happens here is going to affect all of us. Another source we look for, we talked about consensus. We look at the LIRA. The LIRA is the leading indicator for remodeling activity. And this is put out quarterly by the Harvard Center for Joint Housing Studies. And what this just measures is the year-over-year quarter change, right? So we had the good old days there in 21, right, 2021, 22. You start to see, though, that line start to drop. Even though the number is dropping down, it was still ahead of the previous, quarters. But you look at where we are right now, look at Q2 of this year and Q3. That's where that trough is that we're thinking we'll hit that trough, and then we'll start to rebound after that. But this is the total expenditure of all remodeling and residential, all remodeling. It is inclusive of the inflation that Joe talked about, right? So when you add in the price increases, those numbers are reflected here. So it's again, unfortunately, you look for consensus. The one that I like a lot that we look at closely here at Laticrete, because we do a lot of our own internal surveys as well to our contractors, some of you that are in the room. But I like this one. This is a survey that goes out to remodeling contractors. And you can see the column all the way over on the right. Right, they ask basically, what's the future indicator? Unfortunately, you don't see rosy numbers like 21 and 22, right, or even 23. You see the numbers coming down a little bit. So they were asked, what's your book of business look like? And so you can see that there's the number, the index is lower than it's been in a while. So again, if we're looking for a consensus, you just see a consensus that the residential marketplace is still going to be struggling to a degree because of those macroeconomic indicators that Joe talked about. We have a headwind. Right, we have a headwind still. Now the ABA, as Joe gave a great intro to, I just went back to January of this year and looked at the three main verticals that the ABA tracks on a monthly basis when they survey the architects. So you can see, look, residential, the dark blue bar, right, the lowest of them. Commercial, the light blue bar, a little bit stronger. And I think we were talking, Santo and I were talking to Bart before the meeting that, tile and stone especially has a stronger foothold. It's good commercial work. Tile and stone is, you don't see as much of the other floor coverings in some areas, and commercial, especially the LVT. And then you can see the institutional was there. So that red bar going across the middle of the screen there indicates if the majority of architects report stronger inquiries of billing or less. So unfortunately, you can see as we've gone through the last half of this year and into this year, we're still below the average, okay? Here's the money shot for me. This is one of the biggest things that we focus on here at Laticrete. Yeah. So we look at commercial. We already talked about residential. For commercial drivers, the segments you see there on the left, those are the ones that we really look at from Laticrete, because this is where we sell a lot of our product and get specified a lot. So when we look here at the new starts per square foot, you can see that 22 was a good year. And Joe mentioned there's what, a 12, 18-month, maybe longer lag. So what happens in 1 year, you're not going to really feel it until, right, 12, 18 months later. So obviously 23, down a little bit. 24, right now, projecting to be flat. We're probably going to feel 23 at the end of this year into next, and we're probably going to feel 24 more into the end of 25, okay? So there's no bottom falling out, but it's not what we want. We're hoping that as this starts to hit a little bit of a lull, residential starts to come back, and you get that offset. That's what we're hoping for. But it's not all bad news. When you look at the value of additions and alterations, right, that top chart I have there is new square foot starts. But the value of additions and alterations in commercial and all those verticals that you see there on the left, that number has remained relatively strong. So even though the commercial new starts look like they're going to be challenged, the value of additions and alterations in the commercial landscape is still somewhat robust. So in the data that we look at, we, Laticrete, we're a little bit more happy and we're optimistic on the commercial work, and that's where we've really focused on, and we're trying to get what we can maximize in the residential side and positioning ourselves for that trough to come back around. Okay? 70,000-foot flyby. Santo, bring us home.
Whew, I'm trying to catch my breath.
Yeah.
This chart looks at, over the last 5 years, the mix of flooring products that have been consumed in the United States. And you can see ceramic tile has held its own in this environment. Carpet, surprisingly, is down slightly. And I should say carpet has a little bit of an anomaly going on for itself right now. It profits better in down economic times and in high inflation. And sheet vinyl and carpet, people will switch to that because they're the least expensive products. Whether you're talking about commercial or residential, they will do better in down economic times and in high inflation times, as we're having right now. Excuse me. The carpet also has been very strong in commercial. That's buoyed that as well. The category that's done the worst has been wood flooring. And among other things, wood has suffered from LVT and to a lesser extent from ceramic. But LVT is a wood look primarily. And it's even in some construction with the SPC and WPC products, they're boards. And so Americans love wood flooring. They've dropped to less expensive wood flooring in LVT, or what they think is less expensive. They get the look without the price. And wood is going to have a hard time coming back from that situation. Resilient has done well, LVT has done well. Sheet vinyl has done a little bit better, and in VCT in the commercial sector. So all in all, Resilient has had a little bit of a bounce from the economic situation. The other thing that's helping ceramic is the move of the population in the United States from the Northeast and North Central, South and West. Why is that significant? Well, it's significant for a couple of reasons. One, as you go south and west, you get more sandy soil. Carpet cannot tolerate sandy soil. It wears the fibers out. There's more Mediterranean architecture. Both of those favor the durability of ceramic tile. And so plus, it's a heat sink. Ceramic is a heat sink. If it's in the sunshine, the sunlight warms the tile and it gives back to the house the heat that it absorbed during the day. But ceramic is preferred in these markets. As a matter of fact, a good predictor of floor covering is housing starts, as we talked about. And if you really want to look at predicting ceramic tile, housing starts in the Sun Belt have an even stronger correlation to ceramic consumption. And so as the Sun Belt goes, and it's going pretty good right now, so goes ceramic tile. Looking at contractors, this is tends to look at what's going on with tile contractors and specifically other retail stores. And if you look at the total home centers, they've been growing steadily. They have the wherewithal. They have the access to Wall Street. They can get money. They can expand. Smaller flooring stores can't. And what's holding up the flooring stores from being even harder hit is the fact that Floor & Decor is considered a flooring store. And Floor & Decor has been a tough competitor for Home Depot, Lowe's, and Menards. We'll see if that continues, but right now it's a strong competitor. The other thing, a little controversial, is a lot of immigrants coming into this country, wherever they come from, south of the border, legally, illegally. Ceramic tile installation is an easy method to earn money. And so they come with a skill. It may not be at the level the United States is used to, but they come with a skill that they can use to earn money to survive. And that's why you see tile contractors growing. Same thing here. If you look at consumption, it's down, though the number of contractors is rising. That's going to put margin pressure on the contract segment, and it's going to put a downward pressure on wages. So as more and more people enter the market, there's less desire, there's less need to pay more when you can get alternative workers. Again, we see how the ceramic tile goes through the channels. And again, flooring stores, if you took Floor & Decor out of the flooring stores, it would be a line that would be going south. But we've got the top 3 home centers who are getting hit by Floor & Decor, and they're losing some share. And you can see that the contractors are picking some of that business up. Now, it gets a little sloppy because some of these contractors, yes, some of them buy from tile service centers. Others buy from home centers. And they use the home center as a warehouse. So they have a credit line there. They have access to product. They can take customers there like they do to a service center. So where the product goes, the channel the product goes through gets a little murky. Another look at how do people advertise their brands? And increasingly, we're seeing the factories advertising less and less. As a matter of fact, Floor & Decor alone spends more on advertising than the whole flooring industry, not just tile, everybody. They spend they spent in 2023, I think, $95 million, and all floor covering manufacturers spent only about $47 million. What do they spend it on? Well, the factories spend it mostly online. They'll do paid search. They'll do all kinds of things online. Retailers, less so. Retailers are still in the legacy medias, TV, radio, print. If you don't have a brand, you don't have an ability to get a higher price for your product. And that hurts margins. Margins hurt innovation. And so we need to keep following this because there's another trend that's going on, and that is private labeling. If you go into Home Depot, you go into Lowe's, Floor & Decor, they have private labeling. If you look at all flooring, about 80% of the sales are private label products. Ceramic tile, less so. A private label product becomes competition for a domestically produced or imported product brand. And right now, these retailers have elected not to advertise heavily their private labels like Traffic Master, Stain Master, Life Proof. You can see the list there. That's just a partial list. If they start to do that, they have the high ground in the war for the channel because they meet the consumer head on. The manufacturers have to drive the consumer into the store and keep them considering their brand, and that's where advertising comes in. So increasingly, this is going to play out in the marketplace, and sooner or later, the major customers of mills are going to become major competitors, more so than they are today. So ceramic tile's holding its share. It's got geography, it's got demography, it's got style. New markets, new products, outdoor. Now, when you go south and west, you have an opportunity to go outside with your product. And when you go outside, you increase the floor area that product goes into. Immigration is expanding the contractor pool. Consolidation is occurring amongst the factories. It's a mature industry. That's natural. Whether you're talking at the car industry, the window industry, the flooring industry, there's consolidation in any mature industry. Major retailers are heavily outspending the factories and importer brands. And private label store brands are growing, as I said. Brand equity is declining, which then follows margin decline, which then follows innovation decline. And when in that situation, the main source of competition becomes pricing.
That was my contribution, I want you to know.
I recognize that guy.
The bigger the, yeah, that's great. Well, I enjoyed that quite a bit. The problem I got is I had about 85 questions, and now I can't remember which one started. The first one, Santo, when you showed tile holding at 13%, does that include stone tile? I'm assuming it includes stone, natural stone.
Ceramic.
So natural stone wasn't in there. It must be a smaller, an other
5-6%.
category. But if you, for some of our tile contractors, if you added the stone tile, it's even held a little bit stronger. Sean, I promised that we wouldn't get into politics, right? But my memory, but generally an election year, right, over the years, spurs the economy. But this is just a strange election year, right?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion about what the election will do to any kind of economic aspects? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I was warned by many colleagues, don't get into politics, here. So I'll try my best. But look, it's there's a lot of geopolitical things occurring, as we all know, right, that are having a big impact. I think it's one party wants the economy to stay, obviously, get no worse, right? The incumbent, right? You don't want it to be any worse right now. Whereas the other party, obviously, is, let's face it, hoping to illustrate the issues that we're having right now. So my opinion is that you're going to basically see what we have today basically running right up through November.
So you don't see it affecting, yeah?
Not right now. I think usually it's what I've seen. Look, I looked at this about a month or two ago. It's usually right after the election is where you start to see like reality set in terms of what might be maybe the the shroud is a little bit removed on some things and reality sets in on the realities of where we are with the unemployment rate, where we are with inflation, where we are with, there's a lot of commercial properties right now that are vacant. I think, Bart, you probably know some of that. There's a lot. So I think right now it's just going to be basically a chaotic year for this year, and I think we're going to basically stay kind of like up and down. I don't think there's going to be any flow either way right now.
And, we keep hearing that there's talk about interest rates being lowered, and they aren't. So just for me, but maybe for the rest of the room, why is there that? Because then there's that disappointment, right?
They've been saying this now for, I think, every quarter, especially like the last two TSPs. It was like, oh, remember, inflation was only transitory. Remember that a number of years ago? And they kept saying, oh, we're going to lower the rates. The rates are going to lower, but they haven't, right? And a lot of this does go back to It does go back to decisions of spending, right, at the federal level where money is being spent, funding that's being spent, decisions made, decisions not made. But they just can't lower the rates because they're worried that, as Joe had pointed out, that inflation rate will still kind of creep up. We were supposed to be back at 2 last year. They want to be at 2%, right? And we're not. We're at 3. We're still way too high. And they're afraid that if they basically cut the rates more, it's going to just pump more in, and the inflation rate will keep going up. So I don't foresee anything changing, at least until maybe Q3, Q4.
Okay.
One thing I would just add to that, totally agree. If you want to look at inflation and energy prices, especially oil prices, they track almost the same.
Yes.
And the more that you put restrictions on domestic oil production, the more you're not going to tame inflation. And the administration has chosen to downplay fossil fuels at the expense of inflation. I'll be political.
No, it's just that I have 3 children, 30, 20, in that group where, and we saw a lot of this where they bought homes 3, 4, 5 years ago at low interest rates. Yeah. Now they've been promoted. They're in a good position, economically maybe, but they're not going anywhere because they're not going to sell. They're not going to sell that good interest rate to then buy another house. So that affects this economy when this interest rate stays high.
Sure.
Well, and oil, I mean, it's plastic. It's a feedstock for plastics. It's a feedstock for nylon, all kinds of fibers. I mean, it goes across the economy.
Yeah, if I can just add, that's a great point. When the spikes all happened, that supply chain, what was it, 2021, right, to 2022, there's been no relief in raw materials, to Joe's point, right? As petroleum is the feedstock for everything, as those companies are foreseeing what the future is going to bring, they're not investing in capital to expand their production. So there's been no relief for producers of raw materials. The 20, 30% increases that we've absorbed in 21, 22, they haven't gone down. And if anything, I don't really see them going down because, again, the direction right now has been to downplay those. But everybody forgets that stuff's in your shampoo, it's in your car tire, it's in everything.
Aspirin.
It's in everything. So it's a fundamental block that I think is keeping the
So you're saying get more headaches and quit washing your hair?
Quit washing your hair.
Yes. I'll add one point on there, and that is when you look at the raw materials for tile, we all know the Ukraine, the situation. Another word we don't like to bring up, the P word, the U word. The Ukraine definitely had an impact because they were supplying 40% of the body to European factories.
To the European factories,
Huge,
Italy and
yes,
Spain.
Huge factor there. Now, all of those factories obviously had to go redevelop product with new suppliers, and there was price increase there. The plastic clay out of Ukraine is a manufacturer's dream. It's a great product, very easy to work with. So that was an additional cost. Then we all heard about us sending over the liquefied gas over to the Ukraine and all these other countries getting ready for this very cold winter that didn't necessarily happen. And so we have seen the drop in price in Europe significantly on natural gas. It's come down. So those suppliers that are still pulling that out there, you can get my reports that I put out, and I track natural gas, the Henry Hub for the United States, which is one of the greatest natural gas prices you can get anywhere in the world for making ceramic tile, versus the European, but it has come down significantly. We're still 1/5 of the price of what they pay in Europe, but it's come down and it's normalized. So we have seen some things come back down to reality in some aspects. Body is still a higher price. Ukraine, and Vesco is one of the big suppliers out of there, has changed its headquarters, had some new things going on, but suppliers are reluctant to switch back because they don't know it's still not done. The U word's still going on. So we're still waiting to see what's going to happen there.
So are you track both square foot sales and dollars,
Correct.
right? So, where we get our tile impacts that. I mean, when tariffs on China over years ago, and that was replaced by India, news has come out now that there's, Tile Council's made an announcement that they're, going, after the Indian factories for potential countervailing duties or tariffs. How does that affect this market?
Well, I think we'll go through something similar that we did with China, obviously, and it's basically the question's going to be, who's going to win? In other words, Statistically speaking, this will most likely go through. They're the biggest importer into the United States, just like China was. So where's all this capacity going to go? The United States manufacturers, all 12 factories, can't absorb that. So everybody's going to get a piece of the action. The question is there going to be a new China, a new India that's going to take that place?
Right.
And you know, some people say it's Vietnam. But Vietnam's not the price gouging that we've seen from these other countries. So there'll be a piece that goes to Vietnam, there'll be a piece that goes to Malaysia, but then you'll also see Italy, Spain, Brazil, and Mexico gain back some of their share in addition to this. So it's not just a US thing, it is all these importers that are going to benefit from this when we get this through.
But do you see some more of some of the larger companies from Europe or elsewhere considering to invest and build factories?
We'd sure like to see that, Bart. Now, I don't know if any are in the audience, but get off your ass and invest in the U.S.
Because it's good. It's actually good for the tile industry.
It is definitely great for the tile industry. You know, it is very expensive. I get a lot of companies that call me and say, hey, we're going to build a plant. Right when I mention, okay, you know, a 60 million square foot plant, you're probably looking at 180 million. You don't know what you're talking about 2 or 3 weeks later. Okay, we're going to change our strategy. We're not going to build a plant in the U.S. because you think about it, 180 million in their domestic country, their own country, is going to go a lot further in terms of capacity that they can export to multitudes of countries. So that's why the hesitancy you see with people investing in the United States, because they also think that, you know, we're the land of Oz, and we're going to give them all the land for free and the gas for free and the electricity for free. America's great, but we're not that great. It's not going to happen. So I just have to point that out to some of them in the reality. And I think we'll slowly see that happening, but we still have that 70% import, 30% domestic. And even if, you know, we at Portobello added a plant with a lot of capacity, that's where we, as the flooring industry grows and we hold our 13%, well, we still stay at 70-30. You know, even with that additional capacity.
It's always kind of stayed in that.
Yeah.
I'm remiss, if somebody has a question, please just raise your hand and we'll get it in for sure. Santo, one thing I saw in your report, I was thinking, you know, the tile is unique compared to other flooring in the sense that we can put it on the wall, right, for the most part. Are you tracking that, and do you feel that tile has a real opportunity with the way we're producing large format panels? I know we're taking it outside as well with the 2 centimeter and thicker materials. But what about wall opportunities to grow our per capita with wall tile applications?
Absolutely, and with the new porcelains, I mean, we were even talking about stopping the differentiation between floor and wall, because with porcelain, a lot of what goes on the floor can go on the wall too. And so it became a little superfluous. But outside panels, a couple of years ago, there was a real drive at putting ceramic as an outside panel, translucent panels, all that. And I haven't heard much about, I'm sure this crowd probably knows more about that than I do, what's going on with that. But that's a whole new opportunity, building cladding.
Sean?
Yeah, we just recently conducted a survey, an in-house survey among about 500 dealers about trends and what they're seeing for size, you know, and these larger panels, 4x8, 5x10, you know, that we're seeing they're really becoming even more. We hate that, by the way. We want everything to be like we want more grout. So we'd love you guys to all specify much smaller tile, but no. So look, you see it around this show about the need for the installation, the skilled labor to install these large tiles, right, is critical. But we're seeing a heavier trend, larger.
And how about exterior? This 2 cm, I think, is a real opportunity.
100%. It just puts more of that onus on the skill of the installer, the ability of the manufacturers like a Laticrete and others like us to produce really good adhesives and mortars to make sure these things can stick and hold, right, and not crack and everything. So it's just, but that's what the market is going, these larger on the wall. And I think the wall, we're hoping that there's way more vertical surfaces that are starting to be tiled than we've seen right now. I think that's a big growth opportunity.
Yeah, I give a plug to Martin here. He's with David Allen Company, but the Signia Hotel here, that they did the work, and there's some tours of that later today. A lot of tile vertically as well as horizontally, that's for sure. Good gosh.
Well, LVT's having a problem right now as they try to get thinner with SPC product from China specifically, where it's cracking, it's cupping, it's doing some nasty things. And, that should open some opportunities in some areas for alternative products like tile.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about Santo, labor. When you said something there that just made me go, whoa. You were talking about the immigration coming into the country, and that tile might be considered, a skill that they had maybe learned somewhere else. I've always felt like that they might jump into carpet or easier train, a trade easier to learn than tile. Tile is, in my opinion, a pretty highly skilled trade. So I'm just curious if that's what you're really seeing. And maybe segue to Sean. Do we still feel there's a labor shortage, Sean? And I'll start with you, Santo, on that immigration coming in and taking tile.
What's happening is people come in they come from Latin America, and tile is everywhere in Latin America, primarily. Now it's everywhere. But tile is a universal product. It's the #1 flooring product in the world. So people will come with no matter where they come from, they come with some tile installation skills. Do they meet American standards? Usually not.
Right.
And so the thrust is going to be on the contractors and the retailers that hire them to train them to do that. And it's been iffy. A lot of companies that I've seen, and builders, so forth, they have one guy who knows what to do, and he tries to translate for everybody and keep them on task.
Very true.
But that falls down sometimes. Yes, they're coming in. Yes, they're standing at the Home Depots at 7 in the morning to do all kinds of contract work. But in some cases, in a lot of cases, it's not up to the level Americans are used to.
Yeah, it feels, Sean, like job security to NTCA and Laticrete, and this is probably why training is so important.
Yeah, I was going to say he hit it right in the head. I mean, we hear it. It's an insatiable demand for training from our customers, whether it be the contractors, large commercial contractors, residential, our distributors, a lot of our retail customers. We need more training. We need more training. Our marketing team is doing everything we possibly can to make sure that all of our materials and videos are not just obviously in English and Spanish, but there's other languages too. There's pockets that are coming in. So we're trying to do everything we possibly can to produce more information, get it online, get the hands-on training. And I would say, I won't mention the other names, but obviously we've got some really good companies, right? Like Laticrete that are out there investing heavily in training because, we've all heard it. We see it all the time. A person that has an unhappy experience with a tile, the word of mouth is huge. So we want all those installations to go well, so they remodel another room. So the training is we are investing as much as we can. Wish we had more money, but I think collectively we're doing all we can to get the word out and train these installers because everyone needs it and they want it.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, Bart, on that. There is, on Santo's chart, many of us were looking at that chart and saying, boy, there's more tile contractors. Well, there's more contractors, let's just say, from the U.S. government's perspective, but there's not what everybody's ringing up here is they're not qualified. Yeah. Not qualified. Where they're, and Sean might be down with it, when in doubt, grout kind of motto is what they have to fix all problems. So, but if you think about it, and it came up, the opportunity, remember, the United States, we still do a lot of carpet, like Santo was saying. And per capita, the United States is the single lowest from any industrialized country. We use 9.6 square feet. To give you an idea, Saudi Arabia is 50 square feet per person. So the walls that we talked about, huge opportunity for us. I mean, we still paint a lot. We still put a lot of wallpaper up. The opportunity for tile is great. And there's a lot of great, I know that Santo mentioned porcelain. I'm a wall guy, and when those of you that are installers love that white body wall because it sucks into the wall and it's really easy to install. So you look at a lot of these companies out here have the small unit wall. That's a category that is exponentially growing because you guys, either as manufacturers, distributors, wherever you fit in here, that's a margin getter. That's definitely a gross margin growth area because floor is so competitive. We don't see it on the wall because in a lot of cases, a backsplash, 3 wall tubs around, it's not a huge quantity of tiles, so the dollars aren't as big of a spread as you would have 2,000 square foot floor kitchen. So keep that in mind, as that's a great opportunity to grow your market share.
Switching to channels of distribution, Joe, with the influx of Floor and Decor and the home center side, how has that affected distribution? It looks like there's consolidation taking place with some distribution. Some companies getting larger, going into more footprints. How does that impact the price of tile?
Well, it's interesting, and it is happening. The independent distributor, we used to say 30, 30, 30, or 30, 30, 35 in there. Company-owned stores, distribution, home centers. I break that into 5 channels, a little different than Santo. And in that, I look at Floor and Decor and the tile shop as retailers.
Okay.
Only because they market to the pro who influences the consumer, whereas the 3 home centers, they go after the consumer. So there's a different trend there. So a little bit different. Then you have distributors. But you have distributors that are the small mom and pop, and I've been doing business the same way. My great-great-great-grandfather has been doing it. And then you have this other group that's buying up. The PE groups have come in, and some of the bigger distributors have started to buy up smaller ones to create larger footprints, to create better buying power so that they can leverage. So the challenge, though, it's interesting, is that because there's so many factories around the world trying to import into the United States, the price differential you pay with what I refer to as a mega distributor, a Louisville Tile, for instance, did some acquisitions, much bigger. Arizona Tile, great footprint. East Coast Tile along the East Coast. These are what I refer to as the mega distributors. They're growing because their footprint's getting bigger and because their brand's strong. The interesting piece on the pricing, though, is you still have hungry factories out there that will deal with the smaller distributors, and there's not as big of a variance as you think there is in terms of cost, that they're buying product from imports.
Any other questions?
Bart, I may just add one thing. Keep in mind one thing, like a lot of the retailers, there's a lot of the pros that shop, Depot, Lowe's, Floor and Decor, they don't really shop at distribution. The overwhelming majority of the pros that are in there buying, they only buy from home centers. The majority of them.
That segment.
And I know this. So yeah, it's the majority of the pros that are buying in those. They're buying from a Home Depot or a Lowe's, right? They don't have. That's where they prefer to shop for availability and the size that they are, right? So these stores are catering to the homeowners for the tile, but
That's right.
The person installing it, that installer, it's like you got your segment of people that buy from distribution, and then there's a large group of these installers that are buying from the home centers for their reasons. But it's a big number.
It is. It is. Martin, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, John, you had a slide that broke my heart. It was new commercial starts for 24 at 0% growth.
Right.
Can you break that down regionally?
I can. We can talk offline. I don't. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember right now regionally, but there's, again, those numbers were the nationwide average. Right. Obviously, the Northeast is struggling. The Mid-Atlantic and Southeast is doing better, as Joe was talking, some of the macro Santo had in his slide. Texas is doing well. So there are definitely pockets in the U.S. California, West Coast, Northeast, not so great. Upper Midwest, so there's definitely pockets for sure. I don't remember right now which ones, but yeah. Multifamily is in that number. Yeah, exactly. Because multifamily is considered right. Yeah.
And has tile taken a hit in the multifamily side?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I mean,
sure.
that's one area where LVT has impacted tile is
for
multifamily.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What is the opportunity for tile retail with like the Floor and Decor moving in so hard for us, little small?
To compete with a Floor and Decor? You're a tile retailer? Do you install? I mean, to me, your expertise is your service. your expertise as a store with your own install crews, to me, sets you apart right there, in my opinion. So the more specialized you become, the better you train your install crews, and the service that you can give with your knowledge to the clients you're bringing in to your retail store can allow you to set you apart compared to a large company like that. My opinion years ago is if I had a store like yours, I had customers like yours, I'd want to be as close to Home Depot or as close to Floor & Decor as I could be, or pretty close, because they will find you, and then you can set yourself apart that way. Yes, sir.
You mentioned about LVT having problems. And because LVT is probably the biggest problem for the tile industry, where do you see that going? Is LVT going to go into a downward spiral like some of the other floor covering products?
Well, as tile guys, we can wish that, right? Yeah.
Let's start it here.
The scope of the problem is it seems to be focused on thinner imported product from Asia, China, Vietnam. And it looks to be about 5% of the SPC product that's consumed. So I think that'll sort itself out, but in the meantime, there's opportunities with people who've had a problem, retailers especially who've had a problem.
Yeah, one thing I can mention to you, there's a few Laticrete sales reps that are here, certainly at our booth, but on the commercial side, it's just LVT has been oversold of performance in areas that it should not have been recommended for.
I agree.
And I think the bill's coming due now as, it's going to be less expensive, I'm going to put that in, and the separation, the pop mark, just it's not performing well. So I think architects are going to learn. I can't specify that again. I'm not going to do it. Residential might be a different story.
No, I don't. I actually think
the same thing there, but that's what we've been hearing a lot from a lot of our commercial installers, contractors, architects, that they're learning the hard way that they over-specified. Yeah.
Yeah, and life cycle cost is a really important topic, and Tile Council of North America has a very good report that they did. If you go to their website to get the life cycle cost, really important commercially, to your point. I know, and to your point, Sean, on residential, I think LVT was oversold commercially as far as where.
Yeah,
Residentially, it was oversold because of what they said it was waterproof.
Yeah.
And that is going to affect them a little bit. But yes, sir. Yeah.
The other thing I think we have to recognize is the tile industry has standards. Okay?
Yes, right.
Installation, for manufacturing. These other guys do not. So they go into this downward spiral of, I'm going to sell it cheaper, I'm going to make it thinner, I'm going to get mine over yours for price, and then they end up making garbage. It takes a while, and I've seen it in the carpet industry.
I agree with you.
I've seen it in vinyl. I've seen it in laminate. They go through these cycles of cheaper, and then nobody wants it anymore.
Right.
So I keep praying that moment's going to come.
Yeah, I think.
Faster than it has. I thought it would be in that spiral, but from what you're saying, I see that spiral starting. So,
But
for tile.
yeah, I think it segues. I'll ask Joe though. But one concern I saw in the last several years was that, and I don't blame them, but many tile distributors fighting to stay alive started to bring LVT and LVP into their showrooms, which was uniquely different than in the past when we were. Have you seen that, Joe? And I'm just curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier that the independent distributor runs their business very similar, in a lot of cases that I work with them, to their great-great-grandfather's model. Hasn't changed, and that includes product. But if you think about the carpet guy who started out with carpet, and then he added vinyl, sheet vinyl, then he added wood, then he added engineered wood, then he added laminate, and then he added tile. I was a sales rep when I got the call from my first carpet guy. Hey, I want to sell tile. I said, excuse me, but you're a rug head. You can't sell tile. Well, guess what? I was wrong. These guys sell a lot of tile. So But it's interesting because when you just think about it simply, homeowner walks in, they have a plethora of choices of different flooring categories. We in the ceramic tile business, maybe we added stone. Maybe we added stone over the last 20 years. Now taking this jump into LVT, you see the distributors saying, I don't like it, but there's an appropriate room for it in the house. Might be the laundry room.
Yep.
If my washing machine doesn't leak. But at the end of the day, there's certain categories where tile distributors need to take the blinds off a little bit and look at other opportunities out there from floor covering standpoint. We've hung our hat on tile, and tile has held its ground for 12, 13% year over year, and will continue to. But you got to give a little kudos to the LVT family because of the fact that they start with WPC, then they have SPC, now there's the mineral board. Each and every time they figure out a problem, they attack it. They do attack it. I have to give them that credit to it. Now, they're not going to catch up to where tile is because we've been waterproof, and at the end of the day, it depends on your installation for it to be waterproof. Doesn't really matter if the product is, right? But the consumer doesn't know that out in the whole world of the United States when you look at the marketplace. So it's still going to be a challenge, like you said, and each and every time we're just going to have to think of ways to get around that in each time. And unfortunately, sometimes the process of waiting to see the failure is a long time, and then the specifiers and the ones who make the decisions finally make the decision of, let's not go there.
Santo, you don't see, I know that, you had the LVT, the LVP, the rigid core, you had, and laminate flooring was trying to come in with their waterproof. You don't see laminate changing at all, or where do you see the laminate?
Laminate was benefiting a little bit from the problems of LVT as well as tile and some of the other products. But laminate has a little bit of a price advantage, but it still has a sound problem where if you would put it in this room and people would walk on it, you would hear the sound transmitted around. So some consumers find that disconcerting. But it's still there. I personally think a lot of consumers are confused. They can't tell wood from LVT from laminate.
They are confused. Yeah.
And you go to Home Depot and you look at it on those gondolas. What's real wood? Yeah. It's hard to tell, and I would imagine some unscrupulous salesman could sell anything to the consumer, misrepresent the product. I don't think there's a lot of that going on. I only say that because they look so much alike on the surface.
Yeah. It's interesting that the quality of the product on the LVT, LVP, when you mentioned, I think when they were importing it, they weren't producing it fast enough here. They're building some factories here, though, and you said they'll straighten that out. But the impact of the quality is probably the product itself is creating over time probably some failures. Whereas for tile, generally our failures are installation related. So I would say the challenge I give to us is to continue to train and educate, certify our installers, and work on not having tile installation failures, because that's the biggest hindrance to growing our market, if you ask me. So, any other questions? Well, please give our panelists a hand. It's just a couple minutes before 9. So, thank you for coming early this morning, and hope you have a great show. Still have a couple more days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.